Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Damona Tera Vanasa Damona Tera Vanasa Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Yashodanandana Prasadana Yashodanandana Prasadana Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Sangha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava Radha. Jai Radha Madhava Madhava Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Oh, can bring some tissue. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Hari Vrajakacharya Stotra Satya Sri Samaj with Divine Grace Kiraboy Charanarindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki. Harinam Sankirtan ki. Transcendental Book Distribution ki. Janita Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayan the Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Utamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Om Surabhyay Namaha. Mukam karoti vasaram pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class, continuing from the 7th canto, chapter 11, entitled The Perfect Society for Social Classes. And today we are covering 4 verses. They are interrelated, as we will see. That is text 21, 22, 23, and 24, which is basically dealing with the 4 Varnas. But before doing that, I want to read the verse I was referring to yesterday that I could not find immediately. It was on my cell phone, which was not available at the time. And this is a text that we find in the same 7th canto, but in chapter 4, and that is text number 27. The translation does not have any purport. Srila Prabhupada did not give any purport, most likely because it is crystal clear. The message is doesn't need a purport. I'll just read the text. Very nice. One of those verses, again, to be memorized and to understand its very clear meaning. So, Canto 7, Chapter 4, Text 27. Yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme mayi savidvesha sava ashu vinashyati yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme mayi cha vidvesha sava ashu vinashyati yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme mayi cha vidvesha sava ashu vinashyati. So even if someone knows a little bit of Sanskrit, one can follow quite easily and get the message. The translation: when one is envious of the demigods who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge, of the cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and religious principles, and ultimately of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is speaking in his incarnation as Lord Nrsingadev. So we can just repeat this translation. When one is envious of the demigods, we can repeat. Haribol, you can repeat. When one is envious of the demigods, who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Vedas, which give all knowledge, of the cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and religious principles, and ultimately of me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. Yes. So these are, in the Vedic culture, these are all respectable, what is being referred to here are meant to be given all respect. Demigods, Vedas, cows, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, religious principles, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, 7. So when these are neglected, this is the verdict given by the Lord, that those who neglect these very important aspects of society, that individual and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So we continue the 4 verses. We put them together because they represent the basis of what a civilization is meant to be. These echo the same message given in the Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, where Lord Krishna is instructing to Arjuna the qualities, the characteristics of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So we will be reading all 4 of them, but we will recite the first one, which is text 21. Shamo Damas Tapa Shaucham Santosha Kshantir Azavam Jnanam Daya Chutat Matvam Satyam Cha Brahma Lakshanam Shamodamastapa Shocham Santosha Kshantir Arjavam Jnanam Daya Chutat Matvam Satyam Cha Brahma Lakshanam Shamodamastapa Shocham Santosha Kshantir Arjavam Jnanam Daya Chutat Matvam Satyam Cha Brahma Lakshanam Samodamastapa Shocham Santosha Kshantirajabam Jnanam Daya Chitat Matvam Satyam Cha Brahma Lakshanam Samaha, control of the mind. Damaha, control of the senses. Tapaha, austerity and penance. Shaucham, cleanliness. Santoshaha, satisfaction. Kshantihi, forgiveness. Being unagitated by anger. Arjavam, simplicity. Jnanam, knowledge. Daya, mercy. Achyuta atmatvam, accepting oneself as an eternal servant of the Lord. Satyam, truthfulness. Cha, also. Brahmalakshanam, the symptoms of a Brahmana. So we know how in the Bhagavad Gita, as we mentioned a little earlier, very similar verse we find in the 18th chapter, text 42, which goes as follows: Shamo Damastapa Shocham Kshantir Arjavam Evacha Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. We will see how there's a very close, obviously, parallel. Short purport given by Srila Prabhupada here. First, we will read the translation. This, of course, is Srila Narada Muni continues to speak to Yudhishthira Maharaj. He's beginning his introduction, his thesis on the subject matter of Varnasrama Dharma. The symptoms of a Brahmana are control of the mind, control of the senses, austerity and penance, cleanliness, satisfaction, forgiveness, simplicity, knowledge, mercy, truthfulness, and complete surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kindly repeat after me. The symptoms of a Brahmana are control of the mind, control of the senses, austerity and penance, cleanliness, satisfaction, forgiveness, simplicity, knowledge, mercy, truthfulness, and complete surrender to the personality of Godhead, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. So a short purport here. In the institution of Varnasrama Dharma, the symptoms of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi are all described. The ultimate aim is Achutat Matvam, to think always of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vishnu. To make advancement in Krishna consciousness, one has to become a Brahmana with the above mentioned symptoms. One will say, well, not everyone becomes a Brahmana. Some might be disturbed by the statement that is made here, that to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, one has to become a Brahmana. Well, what if I'm a Vaishya? I cannot make advancement in Krishna consciousness. So the idea is that when, as Prabhupada explained, when one becomes a Vaishnava, he automatically will develop these qualities which are described here. So therefore, the as pointed out also at the end of the purport, of all of these qualities mentioned, most important is Achutat Matvam, which is translated as accepting oneself as an eternal servant of the Lord, which is the essence of what is called Daiva Varnasrama, where every single member within the institution of Varna and Asrama understand themselves to be eternal servants of the Lord. So now we go to text 22, which is in reference to the second of the four Varnas. Chauryam Viryam Dhritis Tejas Tyagas Chat Majaya Kshama Brahmanyata Prasadasya Satyam Cha Ksatra Lakshanam. Translation: to be influential in battle, unconquerable, patient, challenging, and charitable, to control the bodily necessities, to be forgiving, to be attached to the Brahminical culture, and to be always jolly and truthful. These are the symptoms of a Kshatriya. Again, very similar verse, text 43 in the Bhagavad Gita. Shoryam tejo dhritir dakshyam juddhe chapi apalayanam dhanam ishvara bhavasya kshatram karma swabhavajam. So these first three varnas, as we are seeing, we'll see the third one here, Vaishya, are very practically identical as described in the Bhagavad Gita. But when we will come to the fourth one, we will see a little bit more explanation regarding the different qualities for a Shudra. So this is, there's no purport to text 22, because again, that is quite straightforward. To be noted here is how Kshatriya, actual leaders in society, as mentioned here, they should be very attached to upholding or protecting the Brahminical culture. They should give respect to Brahmanas, And as we see descriptions in the Vedic literatures, very often Kshatriyas will be gifting land or cows, isn't it, to the Brahmanas, because they understand that without the Brahmanas, society cannot mm, function properly without the guidance, without the proper guidance of the Brahmanas. And also interesting here is how a Kshatriya is meant to be always jolly. He should be, uh, because he is by nature very powerful and very influential, therefore, and fearless also. Uh, Therefore, he's in a happy mood. He's Kshatriya is someone who's in control uh, and who is ready to challenge any kind of opposition uh, to, especially uh, whatever may be threatening to the principles of dharma. Um, and that is the uh, first. Kshatriya, they have three main responsibilities. The first one being protection. To give protection to Brahmanas, to give protection to the general citizens, to give protection to the cows, especially because they understand the importance of cows, uh, both its spiritual as well as material significance, and give protection to the land. Yeah. Um, and the second responsibility for Kshatriyas is proper administration, uh, uh, which is intimately connected with organization, how to organize society. Prabhupada, in his last days in Vrindavan, when he was, this was in the middle of the night, and he sent, he asked one devotee to get uh, another devotee whose name is, at that time was Giriraj Brahmachari. So uh, Giriraj had been with Prabhupada practically, I mean, for many, many years, serving him, especially in Mumbai. So it was like the middle of the night, and Prabhupada had been ill for many, many months. And so somebody woke him up, and told him Prabhupada wants to see you immediately. So he was very surprised, why Prabhupada is calling me in the middle of the night also. So immediately ran to Prabhupada's quarters, and then paid his obeisances. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, you called me? Then Prabhupada says, yes, I want to ask you whether you think our society will continue after my demise, after I leave. So, his immediate reply was that, yes, Srila Prabhupada, as long as we uh, follow your instructions, we follow the 4 basic rules and regulations, as long as we chant our 16 rounds, surely the movement will continue. So Prabhupada acknowledged, yes, that is important. But there are 2 things which are absolutely essential in order for this movement to continue and be successful. One is intelligence, and one is organization. Intelligence is actually the special quality of Brahmanas, isn't it? Those who are highly intellectual, they will generally be able to study very deeply and for many years, whole life actually, Shastra. It's like the Goswamis in Vrindavan. They spent their whole life studying and then writing books and teaching. So intelligence. And then secondly, organization. organization is actually the quality of Kshatriya. That is the second. Protection, then organization. Organization, which is in terms of administration, most important. And then, of course, the third is for the Kshatriyas to perform welfare activities in times of calamities. If there's some unexpected drought or famine, then they have to provide for the citizens. So these are, as we're seeing here, in the description of Brahmana Kshatriya, these are like standard, unchanging qualities or characteristics of Brahmana Kshatriya. And we will see here also, same for Vaishya and Shudra. Now it's very interesting actually that I put these four together. I mean, they are together, but we are reading them together because right after this, and this will be tomorrow's class, right after this, Narada Muni begins to explain the duties and responsibilities and qualities of women. And that goes on for about 5 verses. We'll comment on that a little bit later on. Let's just continue with these 2 verses that we have. And now we will read text 23 regarding Vaishyas. Deva Gurvatsyute Bhaktish Trivarga Pariposhanam Astikyam Ujjamo Nityam Naipunyam Vaishyalakshanam. Translation to text 23. Being always devoted to the demigods, the spiritual master, and the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, endeavoring for advancement in religious principles, economic development, and sense gratification, dharma, artha, and kama, believing in the words of the spiritual master and scripture, and always endeavoring with expertise in earning money. These are the symptoms of the Vaishya. Again, no purport is given here. So, a Vaishya works under the direction and the authority of Brahmana and Kshatriya, isn't it? And he is also a member of the what is called Dvija section of society in Vedic culture. 3 categories of Dvija, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, are all meant to be what we call twice born, receiving sacred thread, Gayatri Mantra. By this sacred thread, Gayatri Mantra, one is able to worship the deity form of the Lord. So therefore, all 3 of them, that is one of their daily, meant to be one of their daily duties and activities, to personally worship the Shaligram form of the Lord. And being devoted, to those who are assisting in the mission of the Lord, assisting in the universal affairs of the world, that means the demigods, assisting the spiritual master, and following the principles of religiosity, And here it mentions we should not misunderstanding. It mentions here about economic development and sense gratification. So, and Prabhupada, of course, in bracket, he refers to dharma, artha, and kama. So, artha and kama are actually a necessity in the human form of life. And basically, sense gratification can be understood in two ways. One is simply to meet the basic necessities of life, to satisfy the basic needs of the senses, or sense gratification generally. Whenever we hear about the term sense gratification, we think about uncontrolled sense gratification. We think about lust, isn't it? Uh, so that should not be misunderstood. The Vaishyas are the ones who provide for the basic daily sense gratification that the body requires. That means eating food, isn't it? The Vaishyas are the ones who produce food. They're the ones who, as mentioned here, uh, are actually, it's not mentioned directly, but it is there. Uh, Protecting cows, protection of cows. So again, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is text 44, Krishi Goraksha Vanijam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam, the first two lines of text 44. Farming, cattle raising, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas. So these are the uh, specific designations or qualities that are meant to be found. So of interest is the fourth Varna of Shudra, which generally we think of Shudra as very low. Uh, but actually, it is not like that. Let's just read the verse and also look at the purport. Shudrasya sanati shaucham seva swamini seva swamanya mayaya amantra jagno yasteyam satyam govipra rakshanam. Translation: offering obeisances to the higher sections of society, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, being always very clean, being free from duplicity, serving one's master, performing sacrifices without uttering mantras, not stealing, always speaking the truth, and giving all protection to the cows and Brahmanas. These are the symptoms of a Shudra. If we look at the Bhagavad Gita, again, text 44, Paricharyat makam karma sudarasyapi swabhavajam. And for the Shudras, there is labor and service to others. These are the two qualities or activities mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So we see here in the Bhagavatam how there's a bit more explanation. Shocham, for example, Socham and Satyam, Shudra should be very clean and also should be truthful. These are directly connected with the basic principles, isn't it? Pillars of Dharma that we read earlier. Satyam, Daya, Tapa, Socham. Satyam, the first and the last one, are meant to be qualities for a Shudra. Let's hear the purport given here by Srila Prabhupada. It is everyone's experience that workers or servants are generally accustomed to stealing. A first-class servant is one who does not steal. So there's, just like there's a first-class devotee and a fourth-class devotee. So there's a first-class Shudra and there's a fourth-class Shudra. Here it is recommended that a first-class Shudra must remain very clean, must not steal or speak lies, and must always render service to his master. A Shudra may attend sacrifices and Vedic ritualistic ceremonies along with his master, but he should not utter the mantras, for these may be uttered only by the members of the higher sections of society. Unless one is completely pure and has been raised to the standard of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, in other words, unless one is Dvija or twice born, the chanting of mantras will not be fruitful. So this may be controversial. Why is it some people can chant mantra and others cannot chant mantra? It depends on the mantra. For example, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra can be chanted by everyone, isn't it? By those who are so-called qualified or not so-called qualified. This is specifically in reference to Vedic mantras that are in the Vedas. The original Vedas are meant to be recited or chanted only by those who have been properly taught how to properly pronounce the words that are there in the Shastra. It generally takes many years in a Gurukula to actually learn the proper, let's say, pronunciation of mantra. There's an example in the Srimad Bhagavatam where, due to some mistake in pronunciation, then the opposite result will come or may come. Yes. So this point is being made here. If one has not been trained in reciting, this is in reference specifically to Vedic mantras, then one should not utter such mantras. Of course, we are reciting all the time mantras from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam. So this we should understand is specifically in terms of the original Vedas, which are there's different levels actually of Sanskrit. That's why our Srila Jiva Goswami is who was very learned in Sanskrit. He understood the different, just like in any language, there is what we call slang. Slang means, common. But then there is very fine or refined level of speaking a particular language. And we find that in most languages, and especially we find it in Sanskrit. So therefore, this injunction is being given that those who have not been trained to read or recite these particular mantras, they should not recite them. And that is one reason also, main reason, why Srila Jiva Goswami is therefore giving more importance or emphasis on reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's also explaining, quoting from Shastra also, how the Bhagavatam for us in Kali Yuga, the Bhagavatam it is more important for us to read the Bhagavatam, and that everything that is in the original Vedas and more is actually in the pages of the Bhagavatam. A very strong statement made by Srila Jiva Goswami. We must keep in mind that after the disappearance of Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami became like the prominent, we can say, Vaishnava Acharya. He became the Acharya for all of the Vaishnava community. And he was known and accepted as the greatest philosopher of his times. If one just reads his books, and he will see all of the wonderful references he gives from different Shastra. And very interesting to read. That's all nicely presented in the Satsandarbha. Most of us have not studied Satsandarbha. It's quite, there are 6 volumes. Up until recently, they were only in Sanskrit. Some, actually, one of Prabhupada's disciples, Gopi Paranadana Prabhu, who was the first, we could say, principal or head of the traditional school that was started actually in Vrindavan some years back. The Srimad Bhagavatam Vidyalaya, I believe it was. And that's where our Bhagirath, at that time, who was in India with Prabhu Kishora, so Bhagirath actually had, he was in the first batch. There was about 15 to 20 devotees who registered and studied under Gopi Paranadana Prabhu. And naturally, they were studying the Sat Sandarbhas. So this is should be comforting for all of us. Actually, as we also know, and Prabhupada has reminded us many times, Kalu Shudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everyone is Shudra, isn't it? So it means we're all unqualified to study the original Vedas. So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is our, we could say, saving grace. Simply by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can realize the main message of the Vedas, which Krishna explains, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedayasya sarvar aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. Sarvasya chaham ridi sanivistu mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. That verse where Krishna explains that actually I am the object to be known in all of the Vedas. That, of course, devotees know. Non-devotees still don't know. So most important is to actually, that was mentioned in the previous verse, most important is to know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and to surrender, isn't it, to Him. And that means to be engaged in activities of devotional service. So the main quality or characteristic, the common quality, or we could say the common denominator for all of these four classes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is to actually be engaged in the service of Krishna. Yeah. Uh, so, um, so this is the short. I mean, we are Prabhupada. Of course, it is Narada Muni who is presenting the giving us a very clear understanding of what are the qualities, natural qualities for Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So, as I mentioned, we will study text 25, 26, 27, also 28, and 29. So that means 25, 26, 27, 28, 5 verses. 5 verses will be explaining what are the qualities, duties, responsibilities of women. So something which is generally controversial when we have not sufficiently uh, studied in depth the Vedic teachings is that Varna, selection of Varna, where that is not mentioned here, but it is taken up by our different acharyas, how to select Varna and who is meant for Varna, isn't it? So, again, because in these 4 verses that we have read, Narada Muni is speaking about Varna and the different Varna, especially the first. This comes out very clearly. The Dvijas are the natural leaders in society, whereas Shudra, they are meant to serve, isn't it? So, in any community or society, these are the two main categories of people. There are natural leaders and there are natural followers. And one should be, just like in a school, in an educational institution, there's a teacher and a student. The teacher is a leader, and the student is the follower. And both need to both need to be qualified also. So the Varnas are specifically meant for men. The Varna selection is done for the young boys in tradition, duties and responsibilities of the Brahmanas. That within a certain age, generally before reaching the age of 15, before 15 years of age, a young boy would be, we could say, assessed, and his varna would be fixed. In other words, in the Vedic culture, it was considered extremely important to fix the varna of a young boy before he reaches the age of 15, because Prabhupada used to also explain, first is varna, then there is ashram. Unless we understand what is our varna, we will not know which ashram we are meant for, number one. And secondly, we also will not know what kind of education one should get, because varna also is based on education. Because Krishna and Balaram, although they were brought up as Vaishyas in Vrindavan, when they went to Mathura, that's when Vasudeva and Devaki sent them to Gurukul, because they were actually from Kshatriya background. but they went to Gurukul. So Gurukul is meant for these three categories: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. Anyways, these are a few points here. Any thoughts or comments? Yeah.
We speak about classless society.
Classless society.
Devotional service, somebody is, like, say, Kshatriya, but he's doing for Lord, and his activities also doing very nicely, satisfying Lord activity.
Yeah.
So is it necessary to just come for Brahmana platform? Like Kshatriya is the Rajaguna, passion. So is it necessary to come to Tattvaguna or is it remaining continue in
Again.
let's say also Shudra. If he is because Guna is there, but that Guna is we are using for the satisfying the Lord and doing very consciousness. So for that Shudra is very necessary to come to platform of Brahmana sharing and
So the question is, within the system of Varnasrama, if someone is playing the role of a Kshatriya, or if someone is by nature Kshatriya, is it necessary for him to come to the platform of goodness, which is that of a Brahmana? Is that, and similarly for Shudra, is it necessary for him to? So the idea is that when Krishna consciousness is absent, um, by nature, one will act within one's particular varna. One will be forced to act because one who is not Krishna conscious, one who is not cultivating Krishna consciousness, is forced by the laws of nature to act according to the modes of material nature. Now, here's the difference. When one becomes a devotee, and of course, it's over a period of time, the first day we, let's say, join as a devotee, we don't immediately transcend the modes of material nature, right? So the idea is that whatever, under whatever influence of the modes of material nature we are as devotees, by associating with the Bhagavatam, by associating with devotees, by associating with the chanting of the holy name, devotional service, all of these activities, we gradually transcend these material qualities in relation to the modes of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains this famous verse, Chaturvarnam Srisam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. So for a non-devotee, the gunas, the quality, will be in relation to the modes of material nature. And he will gradually become purified because the whole idea of Vedic culture is that without Krishna consciousness, one can still, by following his prescribed duty within a particular category, gradually become purified, and he will, the slow process is that from Shudra one will become a Vaishya, from a Vaishya one will become Kshatriya, then like that. But when Krishna consciousness, when one is fortunate to be exposed to the pure teachings of the Vedas, which is only possible through pure devotees, pure pure brahmanas, pure Vaishnavas, then the quality, even though I may be by nature more inclined for Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, or Brahmana activities, I will, by the process, I will become less and less influenced by these modes of material nature, and I will, as we have read before, when one becomes a Vaishnava, the more one becomes a purified Vaishnava, then the qualities of a Brahmana automatically become manifest, isn't it? So it's not that in the context of, let's say, Daiva Varnasrama, Daiva Varnasrama is where individuals are conscious of their spiritual identity as eternal servants of Krishna, and they are engaged on a daily basis in activities of bhakti, devotional service. So, regardless of the varna in which they are in, their quality, uh, there is guna and karma. Their karma means their external activity may be that of a brahmana, kshatriya, or vaishya, or shudra, but their natural quality of a devotee will bring them above these modes of material nature gradually. So, in other words, for example, personalities like the Pandavas, they are they are simultaneously uh, playing the role of Kshatriya, and simultaneously they are Vaishnavas. They are pure devotees. So the idea is that even though they are pure devotees, they, especially this was the instruction given to Arjuna, they will act when there is necessity uh, in keeping with the principles of Kshatriyahood. Uh, so Arjuna understood Krishna's instructions and he agreed to act on the platform of Kshatriya. His acting on the platform of Kshatriya in Krishna consciousness is considered as pure devotional service and does not incur any karmic reaction. Whereas those who act on the platform of Kshatriyahood without devotional service, then they will, it will be, uh, if it is in keeping with Shastra, uh, they will be, isn't it? That's one of the arguments given also in the Bhagavad Gita. They will be promoted to a better position. The reward of Kshatriyas is that they are promoted to heavenly planets, isn't it? They are because they are acting uh, in keeping with. These are the three ways to act, or three levels of activity that is also described in the Bhagavad Gita: karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma means following the injunctions of Shastra, even though it is materially motivated, which is that's why demigod worship is there for those who are not yet fully Krishna conscious. They should perform their karma. They should follow the injunctions that are there in the Shastra. so, uh, so the one who has this basic understanding will not want to, even though he may be acting as a Kshatriya, will not artificially want to become a Brahmana. Uh, so that basic understanding of 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 what is, let's say, Bhagavad philosophy or Vaishnava philosophy needs to be there so that we can, Prabhupada used to say in the context of Varnasrama that for the devotees, it's not that they will not take up position within these different categories, but they will know that this taking up the role of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra is, Prabhupada gave that nice example, it is like acting out a drama. In school or college, people learn to put on a drama and different characters are chosen. Okay, you will be the king, you will be, the sweeper, whatever. So people from different backgrounds take up that role but they know that I'm just playing this role while I'm on stage. And even when I'm on stage, I'm still aware that I'm not really a king, but I should play out the role of a king so nicely that people will be able to uh, follow the whole plot, the whole drama, whatever. Uh, so that means that externally, for a devotee, we externally accept these different roles, but we have nothing to do with that ultimately, because our first and primary and most important role or activity, uh, identity is Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishna Nitya Das. We are eternal servants. So the more this basic understanding is there, so that's why, like in Daiva Varnasrama, means that all of the members playing their different roles, they're all practicing bhakti. That is the meaning of, uh, classless. Classless society means that they are not on the material bodily platform, even though they accept the different roles. The underlying basic and prominent, uh, most important aspect is we're all servants of Krishna. We're all endeavoring to please Krishna. So therefore, the more that consciousness is there, there will be less conflict, and the more it is absent, then there will be more conflict. So I think we need to close.
Yes, I will get
Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki